Good afternoon, everybody. This is Rivens back with another YouTube video. I'm gonna make my biggest strengths and weaknesses for every NFL team, as you can see, all of them here. I am mainly be focusing on the ones that are still in the playoff hunt to basically all the way down to this level. Basically, probably not gonna focus much on these lower half teams. The Bears are mostly out of it, and I don't see them catching up to any of these up here. Um, I guess we'll start off with the Eagles. Um, the Eagles' biggest strengths going into the playoffs, I think, is Jalen Hurts. I think Jalen Hurts, as well as the receiving core of AJ Brown, DeVonta Smith, Quez Watkins, and then the running core of Miles Sanders, Boston Scott. I think that will be the reason the Eagles get far in the playoffs. And I think the Eagles will do well in the playoffs. I think they'll get to one seed and they'll most likely go to the Super Bowl playing either the Bills or Chiefs. Their biggest weakness, however, is their run game. And that's going to be a problem because their run defense, both the run, both not only do they need to run the ball more, I think they need to run the ball more, especially with guys like Miles, as the before Miles Sanders, Scott. I think they need to get involved more in the passing game and the run game. But I think their deep, but I think the run defense also needs a bit of work as well. With the addition, with I think they're lacking a bit more in the linebacking core. I think they have a great pass rush, and I think they have a great secondary. I think their linebacking core is the weakest link on the defense, and I think that if their run defense stalls out and a team like the 49ers or for example, start running the ball a lot on this defense, I think that's one of the reasons the Eagles will start to fall. All right, so that's the lone 13-1 team, and I think they're most likely going to be that one seed. Now let's move on to the 11-3 team, starting with Kansas City. Once again, their biggest strength is Patrick Mahomes and the weapon. If Patrick Mahomes can make anything work, downgrade at wide receiver without Tyreek Hill. Patrick Mahomes makes it work with Juju Smith-Schuster, Isaiah Pacheco, and MVS, and of course Travis Kelce. I think once again, just like the Eagles, their biggest weakness is the defense. I think Kansas State's defense is good, but like it's definitely good enough to beat a team with a lackluster offense or an offense that's all that easily. But they go up against a defense, offense that doesn't slow down, that completely pounds them on every play. I think that's a that's going to be a recipe for disaster, and I think the uh, the Chiefs will do well. All right, so moving on to the Buffalo Bills. Is I think as a four Chiefs biggest weakness is the defensive consistency. Bills once again similar to the Eagles. I think the biggest weakness on that team is the run game, while vice versa, their biggest strength is their passing offense. Another Bills. Let's start off with the passing offense. Obviously, you got guys like Josh Allen, you got Stephon Diggs, and Gabe Davis, and Dawson Knox. And even a guy like Isaiah McKenzie is getting involved more. The Bills defense, however, I do think needs a bit of work, especially when it comes to the injuries, especially the secondary injuries. If their secondary can get healthy and they can add more players, I think the Bills secondary will be really good. And I do think if the Bills secondary stays healthy, they'll be up there fighting for the conference championship. And I'm excited to see what the Bills do against Cincinnati in the next weeks, because that's gonna be their true test. Because Bengals offense is probably the best in the entire league, and the Bengals and the Bills will have their hands full there. All right, moving on. We got the San Francisco 49ers. Right, the Minnesota Vikings, sorry. And I'll move on to 49ers. But anyways, let's start off with the Vikings. Their biggest strengths, I'd say, is their clutchness and being able to step up when needed. Like, if it's a close game, and the Vikings are undefeated in close games this year, if it's a close game coming down to the wire, I think the Vikings offense is clutch enough that it should bail them out of a big situation. I mean, not only is Kirk Cousins having one of his better seasons of his career, but you also got guys like Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen and KJ Osborne and even TJ Hockenson and Dalvin Cook. Like, their offense is good enough to get them over the top. Their biggest problem isn't why they're 0-3 in blowouts. It's because they seem to stall out in big moments, and they seem to get completely blasted. Whether it's against the Eagles and Kirk Cousins has a terrible day, they're on 2 picks. The Vikings defense can't stop anyone. Or the Cowboys game, for example, where Dak Prescott completely crushes them, and Dallas's offense just completely bulldozes them. While when the Vikings are on offense, you got guys like Micah Parsons getting in the backfield and completely destroying their line. That's another big weakness for Vikings, is can their O line be enough to where they can get past the team with a high powered front seven, like the Eagles, like the Cowboys, like the 49ers. Big of which, let's move on to the 49ers. Let's start off with their biggest strength, and that is their run game. The 49ers rushing offense is completely great. I mean, you got guys like Christian McCaffrey, who you just added. You got George Kittle, which is the best blocking tight end in the entire league. You got Kyle Juszczyk, who's great in both run and pass. And you already got Elijah Mitchell back there already. And then you had Christian McCaffrey. And then we can move on to their biggest weakness, and in my opinion, their biggest weakness is injuries. They lost Trey Lance week 3, I believe, either week 2 or week 3. They lost Trey Lance for the season with a broken ankle. And Jimmy Garoppolo broke his foot a couple weeks ago, and his timetable is uncertain. However, I will say this. For the 49ers. Brock Purdy looks really good. And if the Jimmy Garoppolo injury is major, I do think the 49ers have enough to where Brock Purdy, or unlike a couple where Brock Purdy is in a rookie a good situation where he will be able to take down a couple teams. So yeah, that's what I say about the 49ers. Biggest strength is obviously the run game. Biggest weakness is their injuries. All right, moving on, we got the Dallas Cowboys. Their biggest strength is the offense, their offensive weapons. Obviously got that Prescott back there throwing, and then you got Noah Brown having a great season. CeeDee Lamb really stepping up as a number 1. Got Michael Gallup having a great year. I'm excited to see what Dalton Schultz and the other tight end, I can't remember his name, but both of them have been pretty good. Cowboys' O-line has been solid. Their biggest weakness, however, is their tendency to, and of course, their defense has been probably the best in the league. The biggest weakness, however, is that they tend to play down on the competition. For example, the Texans game. where you needed a game-winning touchdown by Ezekiel Elliott to get past the Texans. I mean, you could make the argument that Kansas City was in a similar situation where they needed a giant run by Jerick McKinnon to get them past, to get the Chiefs back to past the Texans. However, going a week later, Cowboys had a big lead and they collapsed last minute. And all of a sudden, they're outside. And all of a sudden, they're losing off a game, losing pick six to the Jags. While yes, they are in the playoffs, the biggest concern is how far can Dak or can Dak take them into playoffs? Because once again, Dak Prescott has not gotten past the conference championship his entire career. And it could be the argument with Tony Romo as well. The Cowboys haven't made a conference championship since 1996. All right, now move on to the last 10-4 team. And as for, I'm probably not going to worry much about these bottom teams. I'm mainly going to talk about these top teams. All right, let's talk about the Bengals. And I think the Bengals' biggest thing on offense is the Bengals' offense has been really good this year. I mean, you obviously got the big guys: T. Higgins, Ja'Marr Chase, there's Tyler Boyd. And you got a guy like Irwin as well, who's had a pretty good year. And then you got a guy like Mixon in the run game, and of course, P. Ryan as their RB2 has been pretty good as well. The Bengals, and of course the Bengals defense has completely destroyed the Buccaneers in the second half of the Buccaneers game. Like Tom Brady had like a couple turnovers, and Bengals defense just completely destroyed them. And his weakness, however, it is that they've been dealing with a couple injuries. That was losing a couple edge rushers, all the couple pieces in their secondary. They've had they they've had a couple injuries in their receiving core as well. And of course, I still don't 100% trust Zach Taylor even after the Super Bowl run. Like, I don't think Zach Taylor is the guy that'll get you a Super Bowl. I think once again get you into the playoffs and maybe the Super Bowl, but I don't think he'll get you past the Super Bowl. I don't think he'll get you to win the Super Bowl. And the last thing I will talk about the Bengals is their offensive line. Offensive line has a tendency to completely collapse towards the times where Burrow, where there are times where Burrow gets completely destroyed back there. And the O-line gets completely pummeled. All right, moving on. You got my team, the Baltimore Ravens, right here, the lone 9-5 team. And the Ravens' biggest strength right now is their defense. Yes, Marcus Peters went down. Yes, they gave up a game-losing touchdown to the Jags and Dolphins. But when this defense is clicking, man, can they click. The Marlon Humphreys, despite giving up a couple big plays, Marlon Humphreys having a great year. And you got the revival of guys like JPP and Justin Houston on the defensive line. And hopefully he's not out for long term, but Calais Campbell's been pretty good. Kyle Hamilton, the rookie, has been really great as well. Their biggest weakness, however, is the offense. Picture this. late in the game, you're down by a touchdown with less than 2 minutes remaining. And the defense completely bottles up your run game, so you're not running the ball well. And they're double teaming Mark Andrews just about every down. Now every passing down to make sure he's not open. Besides Mark Andrews, who's double teamed, do you trust anybody else in this passing game to do anything? For me, that answer is no. This answer is a straight up no right now. I'm gonna be completely honest. This is a no. DeSean Jackson's been decent, but he's still in his upper 30s with dealing with injuries. We lost Rashad Bateman for the season. Devin Duvernay is good, but we don't throw in the freaking ball. Demarcus Robinson has a drop issue. There's nobody else on this defense, on this offense, they could trust in a big situation besides Mark Andrews. Yeah, besides Mark Andrews, I don't trust anybody on this defense, on this offense. We have a great run game. We saw it the last couple of weeks. J.K. Dobbins averaging almost 10 yards to carry. Gus Howard averaging over almost 8 yards to carry. We have a great run game. But the problem is that eventually defenses will crowd the line of scrimmage and completely shut down our run game. And then my biggest problem with Roman is that Roman's biggest weakness is that, well, yes, he has great run schemes, but biggest weakness is that he's terrible with the passing game. I'm going on a bit of a tangent. If I'm a Marine fan, I will be a Rams fan until I die. But Greg Roman just sucks sometimes. There's so many times where I think Ray should have done this, or Ray should have done that, and Greg Roman doesn't do it. Fourth and short. Why are we giving it to Pat Ricard? Ricard's great, but in a situation like that, there's no way I'd have gone with Ricard over a guy like J.K. Dobbins or Gus Edwards. But that's the story for another day. I'll do my Ravens recap possibly soon. But yeah, that's my biggest strength and weakness for the Ravens. Moving on, we got the New York Giants. Giants' biggest strength right now is the run game with Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley has been really good this year. I've been really impressed with him. Giants secondary has showed up in a couple big situations as well. However, their biggest weakness is their wide receiver. It's similar to Ravens, where I don't trust their wide receivers enough to get them over the top. I mean, I do think they'll go wide receiver first round because Wan'Dale Robinson went down with an injury. Sterling Shepard went down with an injury. Galladay sucks. They need extra wide receiver help. They got a decent tight end in Bellinger. I think he's pretty good. And their defense has stepped up at times. All right. Moving on, we got the Miami Dolphins. Their biggest strength right now is their passing offense. With Tua, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. Oh, Cedric Wilson's been pretty decent. Got another guy out there what they was having a pretty good year as well. And of course, their run game has been pretty decent as well with Raheem Mostert. Dolphins' weakness, however, is I think their defense could use a bit of work. They have a decent defense on paper, but on times their Dolphins defense could give up a big play and it'll completely destroy them. Like the Chargers game, for example, where Herbert completely killed them in the second half, or the Bills where Josh Allen completely killed them in the second half. In that situation, not only does the defense fall apart, but the offense falls apart where Tua starts to fold. So yeah, that's what I think about the Dolphins' biggest strength is the offense, biggest weakness is their defense. Chargers, their biggest strength right now is the offense. Similar to Miami, I do think their offense is really good. Eckler is a top 10, maybe even top 5 running back. They have a great receiving core, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and Donald Parham, I believe. And then their yeah, and their O line could be hit or miss, but when they hit, they're really good. Their biggest weakness, however, is their coaching. There are so many times the past couple years where Staley completely almost kills them. Like for example, when he went for on a 4th and short against the Browns in their own territory, and they got stuffed up and almost lost on a game-winning field goal that wasn't shanked, or when he called a timeout against the Raiders or a defensive change, yet that timeout costed them because the Raiders had enough time to regroup and change their scheme. Instead, they were just going to let the clock run out. Yeah, Brandon Staley has not looked good at all. And I think he will keep his job just because the Chargers are good. But the chart, I think he would probably be fired if the Chargers had a pretty bad season. All right, now moving on to the last team that's above 500, the Washington Commanders / football team / Redskins / whatever you want to call them. I don't really care. I think their biggest strength on offense is their receiving core on offense, and I guess the run game is pretty decent as well, and their defense has held up in situations. Their biggest weakness, however, has been quarterback. I think Taylor Heinicke is a good quarterback. I think they'll keep him for another year. And Cynthia Sam Howell will develop, but I don't know why they still decided to give Carson Wentz that big deal. All right. Moving on, we got the 7-7 team. And I'll do 6-8. And I'll do a couple the 6-8 teams I think are still in it. And then that'll be it. All right, 7-7 teams. Starting with the Tennessee Titans. Their biggest strength this season has been their defense. I think the Titan defense has held up really well. I think they've been pretty solid. I think the Titans go anywhere, it'll be on the back of the defense. The biggest weakness, however, is their offense, especially their passing game. They don't have a wide receiver too, besides Burks, and when Burks is out, the Titans passing offense completely falls apart. Derrick Henry is their only notable weapon besides Burks. He's been it's been probably better than expected just because the Titans' offensive line has been probably their out of all their weaknesses, their offensive line has been absolutely downright awful. There are so many times where Tannehill or Henry has been completely blasted. Their offensive line completely falling apart. Moving on, we got the Jets. Its biggest strengths right now is their defense. I think the Jets defense is really solid. Sauce Gardner's rookie of the year. They got decent wide receivers. Their front seven has been pretty good as well. Both of the Williams brothers have been pretty good. CJ Mosley has been pretty good. Jets just all around have been pretty decent. Their biggest weakness, however, is not only have they fallen apart from start from a, I believe they're on a 5-game losing streak. I gotta recheck, but Jets are on a losing streak. Not only that, but I need to see more from their offense. Moving on, we got the Patriots. Their their biggest strengths is their defense has been pretty good. Their return game has really been solid with Marcus Jones. Yeah, Marcus Jones has been a really good gadget guy for them. He's both on offense and defense. Their biggest weakness, however, is they can stall out sometimes with Mac Jones having a mediocre day, or this Patriot fans don't know if he's or answer for the future, as well as their right receiver core is not good either. I mean, Jacoby Myers, the wide receiver one for them was probably a wide receiver 3 or 4 on most of their teams, besides like the Ravens or the Giants or there's some team that doesn't have a good receiving core. All right, moving on, we got the Lions. The Lions have had a really good year, surprisingly. I think the Lions. I think the Lions offense is pretty good. I think the Lions offense has been their biggest strength. Jared Goff has had a really good year. Their defense, however, is I think their weakness. I do like a couple pieces like Okuda and Hutchinson and I do think like I said pieces on defense, but I don't think it's gonna be that key thing that get them over the top. And the final team for part one is the Seattle Seahawks. Their biggest strengths, I think, is the receiving core. I do think they have a pretty solid receiving core. I do think they have a good run game. Their biggest weakness, however, is you'd want to see more from Geno Smith, especially in big situations. There are times where Geno Smith, where games on the line, and Geno Smith has a pretty bad throw or a big turnover, and Seahawks lose. Well, I do think their defense is a bit of a question mark as well. So yeah, that's it for today. I'll probably do a part 2 with all the 6 and 8 and below teams. But other than that, I will see you guys next time.